Hi, everyone. I'm Hillary Wright. I am a registered dietitian and the author of the PCOS diet plan. This is I believe, the third video in a series that I'm doing on ZubiaLive to try to educate women with PCOS about various issues related to nutrition. So today I wanted to talk about dietary supplements, and as I've used in my other broadcasts, I have my trusty list here. But the first thing I want to say about dietary supplements is they can be helpful adjuncts to the diet and lifestyle piece. So don't replace healthy eating. They don't substitute for regular physical activity, which I'll address at another broadcast probably in a couple of weeks. But I did want to talk about potential options. That doesn't mean that you need to take every single one of these supplements. It just means that these are options of things that you could consider based on what your situation is. So I'm just going to go down the list. And as you can see, the first thing on my list is a basic multivitamin. So there are actually pretty specific reasons to take multivitamins. Again, they don't substitute for good quality diet. Many things that are in multivitamins are actually markers for fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So the best way to get those nutrients is to actually eat those foods. But they can provide a little insurance. That's how they're usually referenced. Most specifically, the National Institutes of Health, another health organization that's escaping me, recommends that all women of reproductive age take a multivitamin, specifically to get at least 400 micrograms of folic acid. So again, that is a marker of fruit and vegetable intake. Beans, spinach, all kinds of plant foods contain folic acid. Actually, they contain folate. So in food, it's called folate. In supplements, it's called folic acid. So they also increasingly have some vitamin D in them at higher levels than the minimum requirement. So I'm going to address vitamin D separately. So a multivitamin can give you some basic assurance that you're getting that 400 micrograms of folic acid and a little extra vitamin D, which leads me to my second supplement of note, vitamin D. Vitamin D, we believe probably about 75% of the population is insufficient or deficient in vitamin D. And the reason for that is that human beings are supposed to synthesize vitamin D from sun exposure more than eat it. So when you look at food sources of vitamin D, it's things like fatty fish and cod liver oil and eggs from sources that make their own vitamin D. But foods, specifically milk, is fortified vitamin D, starting out in the early 1900s to prevent vitamin D deficiency, which is called rickets in children. But I tend to recommend at least 1,000 international units of vitamin D for my patients. But many people need more, so it depends upon their year-round sun exposure, their genetics, kind of their individual situation. So the only way to really know how much vitamin D you need is to actually get a blood test and have that taken. So vitamin D is an anti-inflammatory, so it may help with conditions that have a pro-inflammatory component to them, such as PCOS, vitamin D heart disease, cancer, autoimmune diseases. We're most familiar with its role in bone health because it regulates calcium absorption and excretion. So I believe that all women with PCOS should take vitamin D supplements because there is some evidence to suggest that women with PCOS may be at higher risk of deficiency. Anybody who is overweight or obese will be higher risk of deficiency because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. It can kind of squirrel away in your body fat, and then it's not available to circulate and do all the healthy things it does because there's receptors for every cell in our body for vitamin D. So clearly its breadth goes way beyond bone health. But for women with PCOS, there is some suggestion that it may help with ovulation and pregnancy. And again, it's just something, it's important for endometrial health, which is the lining of your uterus. It's important for placental health. So once you're pregnant, the placenta attaches the developing fetus to your uterus, and that needs a lot of vitamin D as well. So again, there's really no reason for people to be vitamin D deficient. Supplements are inexpensive, and I tend to recommend gel caps. There is some likelihood that vitamin D will be better absorbed if you take it in a meal that includes some fatty food because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, may enhance its absorption. The third supplement that I'd like to talk about is called Inositol. Inositol is a natural compound that's found in fruits and beans and, just whole grains and foods. But there is some suggestion that women with PCOS may be inositol deficient or more prone to inositol deficiency. So inositol in women with PCOS can be particularly helpful for helping to regulate menstrual cycles by improving the underlying insulin resistance that's seen in PCOS. It also may help with egg quality, which is important, particularly for anyone who is pursuing fertility treatment. Inositol occurs in the body in its own natural ratio of 40-1 myo-inositol to D-chiroinositol. So when you go to the Whole Foods or the vitamin shop or wherever, you'll see a variety of inositol supplements. My preference is for a product called Ovasitol by a company called Theralogics because they provide it in this 40 that naturally occurs in the body. So it's 2,000 milligrams of myo-inositol and 50 milligrams of D-chiroinositol in each one of these little packets or scoops that comes with the product. And you would take it twice a day. So there's some evidence that it may actually be better than metformin at helping to induce ovulation, particularly when used along with Clomid. Inositol is safe and is considered safe to continue to use during pregnancy. In my experience, I've had someone with PCOS tell me that the inositol helps them to feel less like they're craving carbohydrates all the time. So again, it is easy to tolerate. It's safe. It does require some commitment with taking it twice a day. So with all supplements, you want to think first and foremost, how likely am I to comply with this regimen? But I consider it actually a good alternative to metformin. Not all the reproductive endocrinologists would maybe agree with me. I have actually used it in patients along with metformin. So Ovasitol, I think, is a really important supplement and would be high up on the list of recommended products for women with PCOS. The third product is called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. So NAC is a natural antioxidant. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. It may help with insulin resistance. It may help to lower testosterone levels, regulate menstrual cycles. The best form of this supplement is effervescent tablets that kind of dissolve at a dose of 1 to 3 grams a day of NAC. The next supplement I'd like to talk about is Berberine, Berberine. It's an herb. Berberine, again, may act as a natural insulin sensitizer like the NAC and the Ovasitol. May be good for gut health as well. And normal recommended doses on average. There's a decent amount of research actually backing up Berberine's use. I tend to not use it a lot with my population because most of my women are trying to conceive, and there's insufficient evidence of safety, in my opinion, for use of Berberine in someone trying to conceive. So I tend to not use it. But I know many people do use it at a level of 500 milligrams 3 times a day. So I think it's worth considering. The next supplement that I'd like to talk about is fish oil. So I'd like to first say my preference is that people try to eat fatty fish on a regular basis. Because if you do that, you're getting a lean source of protein, high in omega-3 fats, and the type of fatty acids that is in fatty fish and in fish oil supplements is particularly potent in its anti-inflammatory effects. So I consider fish oil a much more potent anti-inflammatory supplement than plant-based omega-3s like canola oil and algal oil, though those are good options for people, particularly who are pregnant and are looking for the DHA that you need for baby's growth, brain growth, and development. So the reasons why someone might take fish oil is because in its role as an anti-inflammatory, it may benefit your risk of heart disease, diabetes. It contains this DHA that is this critical omega-3 fat that's important for fetal brain and retinal development. So ideally, we would eat 8 to 12 ounces of fatty fish a week, like salmon, mackerel, herring, things like that. Not everybody enjoys fatty fish. So fish oil supplements are an option. So there's, varying evidence of benefit from supplements. There's much more evidence in the value of eating fatty fish. But, if you're going to take a fish oil supplement, it's important to get, if you're trying to conceive or you're pregnant, to get at least 200 to 300 milligrams of DHA and the dose that you're taking. I always tell people that you want to look at the label and see how many capsules you need to take to get the dose, because it's often 2 capsules, not 1. A lot of people complain of fish burps, and indigestion after taking fish oil pills. So I always recommend people take it with food. I think it's less irritating to the stomach. You can also get enteric-coated fish oil pills, which enteric coating is a coating on the outside of the capsule. Most people are familiar with enteric-coated aspirin. Means it doesn't dissolve until it's out of your stomach, so you're less likely to be burping it up. There are many good quality products for fish oil. I tend to refer to Nordic Naturals, which makes a good product, but there are many others that are out there, and they come in different forms. Sometimes it's a teaspoon or a half of a teaspoon, a gel cap or 2. But again, I would really love for people to eat fish to get their omega-3s. The next one is CoQ10. So CoQ10, or coenzyme Q10, is a supplement that is I often use it in my role as a fertility nutritionist to help women who have egg quality issues try to nurture good egg quality in their reproductive cells. Also is potentially useful in men for sperm quality. But CoQ10 in women with PCOS may help. It's one of those things that it is a natural vitamin-like substance. Most of the research is in gum health, so reducing the risk of periodontal disease, and cardiovascular health. So it is often actually used in people with congestive heart failure and other forms of heart disease. But again, many women with PCOS experience egg quality problems because insulin resistance is pro-inflammatory, which may be potentially damaging to egg quality. So fertility requires a genetically healthy egg and a genetically healthy sperm kind of meet up, decide they're a good match, and proceed to divide. So CoQ10 is considered a good quality supplement. When I'm advising women to take CoQ10 for this purpose of nurturing good egg quality, the research, there's not a ton of studies, but the studies that are there suggest anywhere between 200 and 600 milligrams. I tend to go to the higher dose, and the form that tends to be better absorbed is ubiquinol, though there are some other forms of CoQ10 that have higher rates of absorbability. So CoQ10 is definitely something worth discussing with a nutritionist or with a physician to see if it's a good option for you. The second to last supplement that I wanted to discuss is B12. Very simply, many women with PCOS are on metformin, and metformin interferes with B12 absorption. Now, it may take years to get B12 deficient, but anybody who is taking metformin, try to make sure at least that your multivitamin contains B12 or take a separate B12 supplement. Worth noting also that reflux medications like Prilosec, also called omeprazole, also interfere with B12 absorption. So anybody who uses those long-term PCOS or not should be taking a B12 supplement. And the last thing on my list are probiotics. So probiotics, again, this sounds like a long list and you'd spend all day taking your supplements. So whether or not this may be a benefit to you largely depends upon the overall quality of your diet, if you have any specific GI problems that might need attending to. The most natural means of getting probiotics are to eat fermented foods. So things like yogurt and kefir, which is kind of a drinkable yogurt-like product. Tempeh or miso, which are fermented foods made out of soy. Kimchi, which if you like spicy food, it's often put on the table when you go to a Japanese restaurant or a Thai restaurant. It's kind of a fermented cabbage type thing. Sauerkraut is also fermented. So these are sources of natural probiotics. People can also take supplemental forms of probiotics, and there are many out there. So a lot of it depends upon what your need is, and there is a decent amount, in my experience, of trial and error. So they go from, single strain probiotics like Culturelle to very expensive probiotics called VSL, one called the VSL number 3 that's actually got a lot of data behind it for people that have significant GI problems. So I do recommend it for that purpose. I really like Ultimate Flora Every Day, which something that you would find in the refrigerator section of, Whole Foods or supplement store. It contains, the base dose contains 15 billion CFUs, which is how probiotics are, kind of the numbers are counted. For most people, if you look at the line of these supplements, the billions of CFUs keep going higher and higher and higher, as goes the price of them. So for most people, I think this product has 8 or 10 strains of different types of probiotics and in one pill. So again, really important to look at what is the dose expectation when you take a probiotic. What I think is most important is, in order for probiotics to really populate your GI tract in a healthy way, it's important to feed those probiotics, and they feed off of fibers. So again, another reason to eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, to not eat diets that are so restrictive that you're taking those things out of your diet. I always say to my clients, taking a probiotic without eating a diet, a plant-based diet that has a lot of these fibers, is like buying a goldfish, putting it in a bowl, and never feeding it. Eventually, it's going to die. So I know that's a lot of information, and I don't in any way recommend all my clients take all these supplements. Some kind of take-home messages. Try to look for quality. So dietary supplements are not regulated like drugs in the United States. There's actually legislation dating back to the 1980s that made it impossible to regulate dietary supplements. So it's really not on the industry to prove efficacy or that what's in their products is actually in there. It's up to other people to prove that it's not. So there are 2 organizations, USP, NSF, both of those are independent evaluators for dietary supplement quality, concentration, dissolvability. So if a product has that on the label somewhere, and sometimes you have to really look at the small print for USP, NSF, and there's a third organization that's escaping me that does these kinds of independent evaluations. That basically, in my mind, means this provider, this manufacturer is confident enough about the quality of their supplements that they're willing to let somebody else validate what's in there. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you take multiple supplements that are all designed to act as natural insulin sensitizers, it is possible that you might get some symptoms of low blood sugar. So say you're on metformin and then you take Inositol and Berberine and NAC. If you notice that you have symptoms of low blood sugar, then that means that you probably don't need all those supplements. And I think most women with PCOS know what that feels like. You start to feel a little spacey, not mentally sharp, sometimes kind of hangry and crabby, and sometimes almost a little bit shaky. So it's not a dangerous situation. It just is very uncomfortable. I also advise people to keep in mind, some people's stomachs can only take so much when it comes to supplements. So at a basic, the ones I tend to go to the most with my PCOS patients is vitamin D, Inositol, a multivitamin, particularly if they're trying to conceive. And most women trying to conceive don't need prenatal vitamins prior to conception. Sometimes they do. Those will have higher levels of folic acid. And then the other supplements may be added in based on what the clinical picture looks like. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, I am the author of the PCOS Diet Plan. I'm the Director of Nutrition for the Domar Center for Mind Body Health at Boston IVF in Waltham, Massachusetts. And I will be back next week to talk about protein. How much is enough? Have a great day.